You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Today, we have a follow-up on the tragedy in Notre Dame. Robert David Steele's website, public intelligence blog, I believe it's phi-beta-iota.net. He says that the Notre Dame Cathedral burning was an FF. Not that we didn't suspect that already, but he states that there is complicity of the Pope. It was organized by Macron, Merkel, and May. Each are Satanists with the goal of saving the EU and the central banks. So, pretty inflammatory claim. Let's go ahead and see what he has to say about it in the article. The Shepherd's Ancient Diet is the only biblically inspired step-by-step weight loss system that works to completely transform anyone's body. Slow down the aging process, rejuvenate every cell in your body, lose all the weight you want. All without stepping foot in a gym, and without ever going a moment feeling hungry. You're just 10 days away from setting yourself up for a lifetime of effortless weight loss. Imagine cranking up your metabolism to where it's burning fat all the time. Imagine burning fat when you sleep, when you eat fulfilling and delicious food, and when you're watching television or just hanging out with your friends and family. Christina Wilds is the creator of the Shepherd's Code, and in over 20 years, she's worked in fitness and nutrition. She's never seen a single system, program, or diet that comes close to the life-transforming principles laid out for you in the Ancient Diet. It takes you by the hand and guides you step by step to permanent fat loss and health others will notice. Please watch her free video on how to use the Ancient Diet at www.theancientdiet.com. Once again, that's www.theancientdiet.com. I'm going to give it a try, guys, and I hope you will too. I was devastated by the total burning of Notre Dame Cathedral, a place where I once prayed in thanks for one of my sons who survived. I was devastated by the total burning of the Notre Dame Cathedral, a place where I once prayed in, thanks for one of my sons who survived what might otherwise have been a certain death. The parallels to both the Reichstag fire and the September tragedy loomed. Then I heard from the shadow foreign minister of France, and I believe all of the following to be true, and an indictment of Macron, Merkel, May, and the Pope. Notre Dame would not have burned as it did without the explicit complicity of the church and key police, fire, and government offices in Paris, in detail, in advance, and into the future. Here is what I have been told by a ranking source in France. Wow. Did not see this in my article from yesterday. From the top like that, that's pretty awful. Extraterrestrial view of the satanic sacrifice site. Canadian intelligence officers who went immediately to the site for a first-hand look were prevented from getting close. Number 2, no electricity in the area where fire is alleged to have started. Number 3, 2 dead within the fire, both evidently murdered, 2 bullets each. I have not been able to confirm this anywhere else. Number 4, no helicopters brought in to fight the fire. We did learn that yesterday. Number 5, dysfunctional water spraying machine, a mockery of a firefighting performance. And apparently it was 2.5 hours before firefighters were even able to make it to the scene. Number 6, official narrative pretending it was an accident was immediate and clearly on the shelf and ready to go. Number 7, timing impossible to dismiss, intended to prevent announcement of Macron's loss in the national debate inspired by the Yellow Vests. Number 8, aftermath. Afternote A, anniversary of the Titanic that was precursor to the creation of central banks and the subversion of all governments. Number 9, afternote B. This is intended to save the global financial system owned by the satanic elite by saving the European election in May. Anticipate a call for financial solidarity that keeps France trapped in Europe by EU agreeing to pay for the renovation of the cathedral. EU and central banks are the beneficiaries of this FF event, along with Macron as the token leader of France on behalf of the satanic deep state. Number 10, afternote C. This is an intended death blow against Western civilization. Although the Muslims are not being blamed, the subtext is the Frankfurt School and Tavistock Institute fundamental. Whites in the West are SHIT. Hail all illegal immigrants, transgenders, and fat stupid people, the sheep of all sheep. Number 11, Afternote D. The roof of Notre Dame was original to the 13th century and has survived all wars, all manner of natural hazards. This was the single most precious asset in France, not so much a Catholic religious asset as a national spiritual cultural asset. Final conclusion, the Satanics are desperate. Final conclusion, the Satanists are desperate. And one of my viewers cued me into the fact that the reason the smoke is yellow is from the lead roof burning. Separately, I am told by sources in Asia with access to secret society leaders. Number 1, this was a satanic Easter energy sacrifice by Satanists Macron, Merkel, and May, each believed to be an individual Satanist and PEDO and sacrificer of CHILDREN in ritual torture ceremonies. Each one has their own major secular physical world failures pointing toward their earthly demise. Number 2, this was assuredly done with the complicity of the Pope and the Catholic Church hierarchy. The 2 dead may have been murdered because they would not comply with the Satanists' instructions. This was not an accident. This was an inside job and with outside French National Police complicity in closing the area off and preventing effective responses from being coordinated. For the existing plan to blanket this sacred site with water to not have been executed instantly is the equivalent of Dick Cheney controlling NORAD on that event in September. Christopher J. Hale on Twitter said, a Jesuit friend in Paris who works in Notre Dame told me cathedral staff said the fire was intentionally set. I should note he has zero evidence beyond what the staff said, so qualify this as an unsubstantiated rumor. Number 3, the coincidence of Steve Bannon setting up shop in an Italian monastery and calling the Pope an enemy with the timing and scope of the fire total destruction is considered just that, a coincidence. Number 4, the Pope's incentive, apart from being a Satanist for whom God is the enemy and Notre Dame a lovely sacrifice to the Dark Lord, is said to revolve around the WikiLeaks dump and the exploding PEDO scandal that, if properly investigated, would lead to every single cardinal and most bishops being defrocked, and the arrest of Assange, which has triggered the dead hand data dump and will lead to further deeply scandalous revelations about the Catholic Church in regard to Satanism, pedophilia, and financial crimes. Number 5, commercial insurance fraud is beginning to be discussed. The church's income has suffered from that particular scandal. Apart from a satanic sacrifice of epic proportions, the church should be investigated for the possible use of the event as a twofer, a sacrifice as well as insurance fraud. Update on commercial insurance fraud. Alert. Reader sends in this paragraph from the Daily Mail. Notre Dame is owned by the state and has been at the center of a years-long row between the nation and the Paris Archdiocese over who should bear the brunt of costs for badly needed restoration work. Daily Mail, 23 minutes that could have saved Notre Dame. Alarm was raised during Mass at 6:20 p.m., but staff could not find the fire until 6:43 p.m. when the inferno was raging out of control. The patsies for the alleged gross negligence are likely to be the restoration team, we look for them to be placed under investigation as a means of distracting the public from the real perpetrator, Macron and his dark allies. She's safe in our hands. Young construction boss, 32, at center of Notre Dame fire probe, boasted about his firm's ability to protect historic sites as his company won $5 million contract to repair cathedral spire. Scott Bennett, always a good source for grand psyop, says this: if I was a betting man, my guess is this Notre Dame Cathedral fire was a crystal-knocked type of psyop event, similar to when the Nazis ignited the 1930s fire and blamed the communists to win the election. My guess is this is similar, with Macron benefiting by shutting down the Yellow Vest protests, which have been destroying him and putting France in civil war. Who benefits from the fire? Well, perhaps the Mossad and or Shin Bet doubling down on their religious war between Muslims and Christians, and may have been the case in the NZ event and the fake video of the guy running around like he's in a video game with fake weapons, etc. A renewed religious war is always good for the military-industrial complex. Perhaps they might even try and blame it on Iran, but most likely would have been MEK if it was anyone working with MI6 and clowns. Just another day in the police state. And then there are a couple of links. There is to be a particular insult which will be inflicted upon my holy name in an effort to desecrate me during Holy Week. This wicked gesture during Holy Week will be seen by those who keep their eyes open, and this will be one of the signs by which you will know that the impostor who sits on the throne in my church on earth does not come from me. Message of Jesus, Thursday, March 14th, 2013, from the Book of Truth. We'll go ahead and check that out as well. Wow. And then we did see these covers, which were already printed last night. 9 Centuries of History Lost. Wow, no. Here are the rest of this article is just a bunch of citations and links from Robert David Steele. Let's go ahead and check these articles out from the end there. Let's go ahead and check these articles out from the end there. From Summit News, Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris on fire. Worker claims it was deliberately started. The famous Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris is on fire, with one worker claiming that the blaze was deliberately set. The roof of the historic building has completely collapsed. Let's go ahead and watch one more clip of video about it.
And interestingly, Francois, as I'm going across the city, I'm seeing evacuations happen as well. People, older people coming out in wheelchairs from their apartments, people bringing their animals. I'm now turning to the back of the cathedral, so I am just on the opposite side from the main plaza in front of it. Just to give our viewers an update, it is a terrible scene here. The roof has entirely collapsed. There are flames coming out of the back of the cathedral as if it was a torch. It looks like the Olympic torch from the back, with flames coming out of the roof. The spire, the flames have reached almost to the entire top, and the bottom half looks like a shell.
Now, they were speculating last night, before the fire was even put out, that it was linked to the renovation work. However, Time columnist Christopher J. Hale tweeted that someone said that it was deliberately set. This is very interesting that this gentleman, Christopher Hale, works for Time magazine, and he is saying that. Hale deleted the tweet within minutes after it attracted attention. The St. Sulpice Church in Paris was deliberately set on fire earlier this year, although media reports downplayed the story. Let's go ahead and watch that video. Apparently, there has been a series of churches in Paris set on fire in recent weeks. Apparently, up to 10, if I'm not mistaken. And Notre Dame was the first one that I had heard about. Very, very shocking. I cannot believe that this is happening. I suppose that I can believe it, but I'm shocked nonetheless. Now, there were some other interesting things that took place on Fox News yesterday during the fire itself. We'll go ahead and watch those in a moment. As we reported earlier, anti-Christian attacks in France are on the rise, while attacks against Jewish symbols have also risen by 74%. According to a group that studies hate crime attacks against Christians, February was the worst month for attacks on Christian churches since they began collecting data. According to Ellen Fantini, anti-Christian attacks are being minimized despite representing the largest share of hate crimes. Also, take note of the names who were celebrating the fire by reacting with smiley faces on Facebook. Incredible. Look at that. Smiley face after smiley face after smiley face. 1,343 smiley faces. Also important to note that there were 1,490 hearts. But the smiley faces are the most troubling. Incredible. This is disgusting. How could anyone take joy in that? Wow. Now, here is the official story from Haaretz. Macron vows to rebuild Notre Dame Cathedral after devastating fire. Macron vowed to rebuild after Notre Dame Cathedral went up in flames on Monday in a roaring blaze that devastated the Parisian landmark, one of France's most visited places. Tuesday morning, firefighters said they gained control over the fire and saved the shell of the stone structure from collapse. Oh, this is an 4-hour live stream. I'm not going to play that. Flames that began in the early evening burst rapidly through the roof of the centuries-old cathedral and engulfed the spire, which toppled, quickly followed by the entire roof. As it burned into the evening, firefighters battled to prevent one of the main bell towers from collapsing. One firefighter was seriously injured, the only reported casualty. Not taking note of the two that were reported in the other article. We now believe that the two towers of Notre Dame have been saved, Paris Fire Chief Jean-Claude Gallet told reporters at the scene. We now consider that the main structure of Notre Dame has been saved and preserved. Wow. I kind of thought that Macron's facial expressions during his speech were a little suspect. There was still a risk that some of the interior structures could collapse and firefighters would work overnight to cool them down, he said. This was the moment that the spire fell? No? A centuries-old crown of thorns made from reeds and gold and the tunic worn by St. Louis, a 13th century king of France, were saved, Notre Dame's top administrative cleric Monsignor Patrick Chauvet said. But firefighters had struggled to take down some of the large paintings in time, he said. Parisians watched from the other side of the River Seine and gasped as the spire folded over onto itself and fell into the inferno. The cathedral is currently undergoing a €6 million renovation project. Now it's going to be far more expensive. Police say the cause of the massive fire of Notre Dame Cathedral isn't yet known. Fire Chief Jean-Claude Gallet said outside the iconic cathedral as his crews battled the blaze from both the exterior and interior. We are not sure we are capable of stopping the spreading to Notre Dame's second tower and belfry. Gallet said if it collapses, you can imagine how important the damage will be. French President Emmanuel Macron, who arrived at the scene after the fire broke out, says the fire consuming Notre Dame Cathedral is taking part of all of France's people with it. Macron tweeted about after the blaze broke out in the cathedral spire on Monday. He said he was sad to see a part of us being on fire. And there, of course, is the cathedral prior to the incredible blaze. He extended thoughts for all the Catholics and all the French. His administration says Macron was heading to Notre Dame. Macron has promised to rebuild Notre Dame Cathedral and says he is seeking international help to restore the Paris landmark. That's where EU comes in. Macron said after the French capital's fire chief announced the emergency response had changed into a monitoring and mop-up operation. The worst has been avoided, although the battle is not yet totally won. Our hearts are with the people of France and the legends of Notre Dame Paris, real and fictional, and we pray for it to stand in eternity. Macron said a national fundraising campaign to restore Notre Dame would be launched Tuesday, and he called on the world's greatest talents to help. The French leader credited the courage and great professionalism of firefighters with sparing Notre Dame's facade and two landmark towers from being destroyed. France's civil security agency says all means except for water-dropping aircraft were deployed to tackle the blaze. Why? The defense agency said those were unsuitable for fires like the one at Notre Dame because dumping water on the buildings would cause the whole structure to collapse. Okay. I don't know about architecture, you guys. If anyone has any comments on that, I'd like to see it. The Paris prosecutor's office said it had launched an inquiry into the fire. Several police sources said they were working on the assumption, for now, that it was accidental. Notre Dame spokesman André Finot told French media, "Everything is burning, nothing will remain from the frame." Firefighters cleared the area around the cathedral, which marks the very center of Paris. Buildings around were evacuated. Israel's president, Rouven Rivlin, extended sympathy to France, tweeting, "Our hearts are with the people of France and the legends of Notre Dame, Paris." Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo says firefighters are trying to contain a terrible fire at the city's Notre Cathedral. Hidalgo urged residents of the French capital to stay away from the security perimeter around the Gothic-style church. The mayor says city officials are in touch with Roman Catholic diocese in Paris. President Emmanuel Macron canceled an address to the nation that had been due to give later on Monday evening. A presidential official said Macron was to go to the scene of the blaze. Built over a century, starting in 1163, Notre Dame is considered to be among the finest examples of French Gothic cathedral architecture. Now, let's take a listen to a few instances of Fox News stopping their guests from speculating on the cause of the fire. Interesting to note this because, as I said earlier, before the fire had been put out, they were already speculating that it had been caused by the renovations themselves. Let's listen to this.
Philippe Carcenti is on the line with us, a French elected official who is in Paris now. Philippe, what have you seen and what do you know?
Well, I was close to the scene when it happened, and now I left the place because we want to let people work around it. Everybody's really under shock now in France. I would tell you something. It's even if nobody died. I mean, it's like a 9/11. It's a French 9/11, you know, and it's a big shock. I mean, this church was there for more than 850 years. Even the Nazis didn't dare to destroy it. And you need to know that for the past years we had churches desecrated each and every week in France, all over France. So of course you will hear the story about the political correctness, which will tell you that it's probably an accident.
Sir, we're not going to speculate here of the cause of something which we don't know. If you have observations or you know something, we would love to hear it.
No, I'm just telling you something. What we need to be ready.
No, sir, we're not doing that here. Not now.
Okay.
Not on my watch.
Okay.
Felipe Carcenti, okay. It's very good of you to be here. We're watching the at least partial destruction of a world icon. Notre Dame Cathedral has been burning for 2.5 hours. The initial reports we got were that the fire started in a construction zone in the rear. We are thousands of miles away, and the man on the phone with us has absolutely no information of any kind about the origin of this fire, and neither do I. And the fire investigators will at some point come to a determination about what caused this. And conspiracy theories about anything are worthless.
Shepard Smith is the one who's worthless. The idea that you could not speculate on the fact that churches every week have been desecrated in France, and then to not be able to speculate that perhaps this could be part of a similar chain of events, it's absolutely ridiculous, okay? For the last 2.5 years, we have had the entire media speculating that our president was a Russian asset. The ridiculous notion that our president was compromised in working for the benefit of Russia when he was clearly working for the benefit of America and Americans. But you have Shepard Smith not allowing someone to just mention the fact that churches are being desecrated in France. I'm so angry by this. I'm so angered by this. Let's go ahead and listen to another instance of this happening on faux news. James True on Twitter speculates these aren't church fires, they're construction demolition. They are rebuilding a new religion for a modern, diverse nation. Now, here is footage of Neil Cavuto striking down any speculation.
This renovation was paid for up front. So in other words, all the monies were there. And now I'm wondering how much more the Catholic Church commits to this, or do you think now they first want to get to the bottom of it?
Well, first they have to get to the bottom of it, and they will rebuild it. There's no question about that. They certainly, the Catholic Church will come up with the money for it. That's not even a question. But I'm sorry. I mean, when I find out that the Eucharist is being destroyed and excrement is being smeared on crosses,
wait a minute,
this
Bill,
is going on now.
We can't, Bill, I love you, Bill, but we cannot make conjectures about this. So thank you very much. Bill, I'm sorry. Thank you very, very much. I do want to let people know, and again, we're not trying to be rude to our guests here. There is so much we do not know about what happened here. We do know that about...
Since when does the press not speculate on things that they know absolutely nothing about? Since when does the press not draw conclusions and make conversation about things that could possibly be happening? Okay? It is absolutely fundamental to national discourse, to our media and journalism, for people to investigate and dig and draw conclusions and put things together. That is how things are figured out. Okay? And it is absolutely natural and good for people to draw a conclusion between point A and point B, especially when there is motive, when there is proximity, when there is similarity, all of these things put together, and it shows a pattern of events. Neil Cavuto and Shepard Smith, these anchors on faux news, must have been told specifically not to draw conclusions, not to put anything together which might show that this was a deliberate act. It makes me think even more that it more than likely actually is. And here's an article from the Gateway Pundit talking about Neil Cavuto's behavior. Neil Cavuto apparently hung up on the Catholic League president Bill Donahue after he points out that there have been recent attacks on French churches. The 800-year-old Basilica of Saint Denis in France was heavily vandalized in March. Vandals smashed the 19th century stained glass windows and the nearly 200-year-old organ. The Basilica is the first Gothic church in Europe, built in 1135. Several French churches have been attacked in recent years. The vandalism at Saint Denis was likely done, according to Tamelkecht, as a result of someone hiding within the instrument and smashing their way out. On Tuesday, even more damage was discovered, with 2 stained glass windows having been smashed along with 2 locks that had been pried open. The windows were created in the 19th century, rebuilt after the destruction of the French Revolution. Police say they are investigating the incidents. On Monday, Catholic League President Bill Donahue went on with Neil Cavuto to discuss the inferno at Notre Dame Cathedral. During the discussion, Donahue brought up the recent vandalism on several French Catholic churches. Let's go ahead and take a listen to another take.
On the phone, Bill, we don't know what started this. We do know the repercussions and what has been left as a result of this. Ruins, and ruins that could take some time to fix and make right, and you never can make it as it was.
Well, Neil, if it is an accident, it's a monumental tragedy. But forgive me for being suspicious. Just last month, a 17th century church was set on fire in Paris. We've seen tabernacles knocked down. Crosses have been torn down. Statues have been smashed.
We don't know that. We don't know. So if we can avoid what your suspicions might be, I do want to look at what happens now. There was a very pricey rebuilding and renovation effort going on that involved a good deal of Catholic fundraising campaigns, I know, in this country and abroad. This renovation was paid for up front. So in other words, all the monies were there. And now I'm wondering how much more the Catholic Church commits to this, or do you think now they first want to get to the bottom of it?
Well, first they have to get to the bottom of it, and they will rebuild it. There's no question about that. And certainly the Catholic Church will come up with the money for it. That's not even a question. But I'm sorry. I mean, when I find out that the Eucharist is being destroyed and excrement is being smeared on crosses,
wait a minute,
this
Bill,
is going on now.
We can't, Bill, I love you, Bill, but we cannot make conjectures about this. So thank you very much. Bill, I'm sorry. Thank you very, very much. I do want to let people know, and again, we're not trying to be rude to our guests here. There is so much we do not know about what happened here.
Unforgivable. Neil Cavuto hanging up on the Catholic League president. There must have been a directive from on high not to talk about this specifically. And Bill Donahue is having none of it. He slams Fox News for cutting his segment after he points out the recent attacks on French churches. On Monday, Catholic League President Bill Donahue went on with Neil Cavuto to discuss the inferno at Notre Dame's cathedral. During their discussion, Donahue brought up the recent vandalism on several French churches. Cavuto hung up on him. According to the UK Sun, 875 Catholic churches were vandalized in France in the last year. Let's go ahead and watch this. The famous Saint Sulpice Church in Paris was lit on fire just last month. The month before that, an attack on Saint Nicholas in northern France, and another fire lit in Saint Helene Cathedral in southern French. There seems to be a recurring theme here, and Fox News doesn't want us to talk about it. On Tuesday, Bill Donahue slammed Fox News for cutting his segment on the Notre Dame Cathedral Inferno. The dumped call was discussed on 77 WABC's Bernie and Sid in the Morning, where hosts Bernie McGurk and Sid Rosenberg defended Donahue by saying he was horrifically treated by Cavuto, and the more rational answer is that the fire was caused by terror. Donahue went on to say that he blames Fox News higher-ups for the abrupt termination of his segment. When I say it's coming from the top, they did this all day on Fox. I got all kinds of phone calls from friends of mine, people who are at home, people who are retired, and they say, this is the MO, this is what Fox is doing. So this is coming from the corporate boys. This is not the same Fox News that it was under Roger Ailes. He would have never, ever put up with this. The conversation continued with Donahue eventually expressing concern that free speech is getting crushed on Fox News. And I think we've all been aware of this for some time. Things have certainly changed. Fox News is heading in the direction of the rest of the fake media. They may still be the only major media organization giving any fair treatment to the president, but they are certainly going down the tubes. And finally, in a miracle at Notre Dame, amazing video shows the cross lit up and still standing after the fire engulfed the entire cathedral. A massive fire engulfed the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris on Monday evening. People around the world watched in horror as the iconic spire collapsed. French firefighting officials are saying the main structure of Notre Dame has been saved from total destruction. An aerial shot of the historic cathedral showed widespread damage to the roof. However, a photo of the interior of the church revealed a cross was still intact and standing, a miracle. Video of the cross miraculously standing in the ruins as firefighters enter the cathedral. Let's take a look. Certainly a miracle. And here are some photos. It's also feared that the Jesus Christ crown of thorns could have been destroyed in the blaze, but we actually know that it has not. It was saved, certainly. Now, this is something that I only vaguely remember from my years in Catholic school. The fact that Jesus' crown of thorns survived. Now, I'm hearing mixed things. There was something earlier that said that this crown of thorns was created in 1000, something like that. It appears that the actual crown of thorns is contained within this larger piece that was created to house it. So the crown of thorns was actually in Notre Dame. And more than likely, it was meant to burn along with everything else, but the relics, the pieces of art, everything had been taken out very recently due to the renovations that were taking place. Now, I just want to say that my mom and one of my viewers sent me a video by John X Army where he talks about this, so I just want to give that shout out because I did see that video. Normally I don't try not to watch other people's YouTube videos, but I am re-recording this because I've seen his video now, and I want to give him a shout out because he does talk about this. So Jesus' crown of thorns and the tunic of St. Louis rescued from the inferno at Notre Dame Cathedral. So St. Louis first carried Jesus Christ's crown of thorns into the Saint Chapel for the first time in 1238. The crown of thorns is now kept at Notre Dame Cathedral. On the first Friday of the month, the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, guardians of the relic at the Cathedral of Notre Dame, present the crown of thorns for adoration at the Cathedral of Notre Dame. On Monday, Notre Dame Cathedral was engulfed in flames. The crown of thorns was rescued from the burning cathedral. And of course, we already talked about the fact that most of the artwork was saved due to the fact that it was being renovated. There were several pieces that people did have to rush in and take down off the walls, but the vast majority of them were saved. And the crown of thorns is one of those things. Now, what's very interesting is the fact that if this is the actual crown of thorns from Jesus, then they would perhaps be able to take some type of DNA sample from the blood found on this crown. And that's not something I've ever heard of. I've heard a lot about the testing of the Shroud of Turin, and there's a fair amount of doubt that's been sown into the community, making people think that not knowing whether or not it is the actual shroud that covered the body of Jesus Christ in the tomb. But I have never heard anything about testing of this crown. Now, in researching to do some more, information for this video, it seems that there are a lot of pieces of the crown of thorns, or supposed pieces, that are found in many other areas, and we'll take a look at that also in just a second. But there is an actual picture of it. I just want to get a close-up on that. So some Notre Dame treasures saved by French firefighters. 2 irreplaceable artifacts have been rescued: the crown of thorns, a relic of the Passion of the Christ, and the tunic allegedly worn by St. Louis. Now, let's take a look at the information about the various relics that are held throughout the world. According to 3 of the Gospels, a woven crown of thorns was placed on the head of Jesus during the events leading up to the crucifixion. It was one of the instruments of the Passion employed by Jesus' captors, both to cause him pain and mock his claim of authority. It is mentioned in the Gospels of Matthew, and when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head and a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." And John, Mark and John, and it is often alluded to by the early church fathers such as Clement of Alexandria, Origen, and others. In later centuries, relics believed by many to be all or part of the crown of thorns have been venerated. A few writers of the first 6 centuries AD speak of a relic known to be still in existence and venerated by the faithful. Saint Paulinus of Nola, writing after 409, refers to the thorns with which our Savior was crowned, as relics held in honor among with the cross to which he was nailed and the pillar at which he was scourged. Now, I've also heard that there are pieces of the cross, and I've seen an actual piece of what was supposed to be the cross. And it was taught to me when I was younger that the cross itself was broken down so that pieces of it could be given to many churches throughout the world. When commenting on Psalm IXXXVI, speaks of the crown when commenting on Psalm LXXXVI, speaks of the crown of thorns among the other relics, which are the glory of the earthly Jerusalem. There, he says, we may behold the thorny crown, which was only set upon the head of our Redeemer, in order that all the thorns of the world might be gathered together and broken. When Gregory of Tours in De Gloria Martyri avers that the thorn in the crown still looked green, a freshness which was miraculously renewed each day, he does not much strengthen his historical authenticity as a relic he had not seen, but the breviary of short description of Jerusalem and the itinerary of Antinius of Piacenza clearly state that the crown of thorns was currently shown in the Basilica of Mount Zion, although there is uncertainty about the actual site to which the author refers. From these fragments of evidence and others of later date, it is likely that a purported crown of thorns was venerated at Jerusalem from the 5th century for several hundred years. Now, looks like this was just added in earlier today or yesterday. This particular image. But in 1238, Baldwin II, the Latin Emperor of Constantinople, anxious to obtain support for his tottering empire, offered the crown of thorns to Louis IX, King of France. It was then in the hands of the Venetians as security for a heavy loan, but it was redeemed and conveyed to Paris, where Louis IX built the Saint Chapel to receive it. The relic stayed there until the French Revolution, when, after finding a home for a while in the Bibliothèque Nationale, the Concordant of 1801 restored it to the church, and it was deposited in the Cathedral of Notre Dame. The relic that the church received is a twisted circlet of Junicus balticus rushes. The thorns preserved in various other reliquaries are of Ziziphus spina Christi, and had apparently been removed from the crown and kept in separate reliquaries since soon after they arrived in France. New reliquaries were provided for the relic, one commissioned by Napoleon, another in jeweled rock crystal, and more suitably Gothic, was made to the designs of Eugene Viollet-le-Duc. In 2001, when the surviving treasures from the Saint Chapel were exhibited at the Louvre, the chaplet was solemnly presented every Friday at Notre Dame. Pope John Paul II translated it personally to the Saint Chapel during World Youth Day. The relic can be seen only on the first Friday of every month, when it is brought out for a special veneration mass, as well as each Friday during Lent. See also Feast of the Crown of Thorns. The relic was saved by Jean-Marc Fournier, a chaplain of the Paris Fire Brigade during the Notre Dame Paris fire of April 15, 2019. Fournier had previously prayed over the dead and comforted survivors and the injured inside the Bataclan in the aftermath of the November 2015 Paris attacks by a particular group. Authorities are agreed that a sort of helmet of thorns must have been plated by the Roman soldiers, this band of Russias being employed to hold the thorns together. It seems likely, according to M. de Millet, that already at the time when the circlet was brought to Paris, the 60 or 70 thorns, which seem to have been afterwards distributed by St. Louis and his successors, had been separated from the band of Russias and were kept in a different reliquary. None of these now remain at Paris. Some small fragments of rush are also preserved at Arras and Lyon. With regard to the origin and the character of the thorns, both tradition and existing remains suggest that they may have come from the bush botanically known as Ziziphus spinichristi, more popularly the jujube tree. This reaches the height of 15 or 20 feet and is found growing in abundance by the wayside around Jerusalem. The hooked branches of this shrub are armed with thorns growing in pairs, a straight spine and a curved one commonly occurring together at each point. The relic preserved in the Cappella della Spina at Pisa, as well as that at Trier, which through their early history is doubtful and obscure, are among the largest in size, afford a good illustration of this peculiarity. Now, everyone, please, I don't speak French, so, and I'm very sick, so please excuse my butchering of the French language. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people telling me how to pronounce these words, and that's fine, because I don't speak French, so you guys are welcome to just rip me up on that, but please be kind. Now, I don't want to get a copyright strike, so I'm not going to show you guys this entire video, but this is a video called I Pet Goat 2. Now, since the fire at Notre Dame, this video has been everywhere. I saw this video initially when it first came out, and when I looked at this video again the night of the fire, it only had about 7,000 views, so they've gotten quite a few more views since that time, up to 92,000 now. I originally saw this video on YouTube because it had a lot of symbolism showing things related to the Antichrist, also to the terrible event that took place in September of 2001. And it starts out with some Now, I originally saw this video when it first came out because it had some really curious symbolism. Some things having to do with the Antichrist. You can see here that there's this goat. The horned goat is often referred to in issues dealing with satanic practices. There is a barcode on its head. And you can also see there appears to be 3 numbers there. We're going to go ahead and zoom in on that. Maybe I can see that a little better, but it looks to be at least 16. Actually, it looks like it's 645, perhaps. But the video goes on, and it shows some images of a George W. Bush figure wearing a dunce cap with a Masonic tiled floor. This, I would imagine, represents the morning when he was reading I Pet Goat to the children in that classroom. And he is dancing around, and then he morphs into an image of President B.O. One thing I also wanted to show you is that B.O. is shown here with some very sharp canine teeth, almost, you might say, vampiric. What does that mean? Drinking the blood? And then after that, we have an Alice in Wonderland figure holding what appears to be the apple that I would imagine Eve plucked from the tree. I'll also note it looks like she is surrounded by what appears to be a ring of urine. Then the apple is cut, and there is a vine that grows out of it, and it becomes a flower. And then there is some images of some towers, which bear a striking similarity to what happened in September. There is a man. He bears a striking resemblance to OBL. And you can see that crescent moon in the back. And I'll let you guys figure out where that crescent moon can be found. There's also a sigil on his chest right there I'm going to call out. And then there is a baby in utero. Looks to me to be some Egyptian symbolism right there, a headed jackal. And then, of course, Jesus Christ appears directly after that, or a symbol of Jesus Christ. There's also a lot of phallic symbolism in this video. Now Jesus rides in on a boat, and it kind of looks to me to be the ferry that people would supposedly get on when they're crossing to the land of the dead. And you can see that there is a pyramid on his forehead, and there also is an all-seeing eye. I'll get you a better view of that here. There is also the Hindu goddess Kali. Some more phallic symbolism. And you can see here Jesus as he's riding in on this jackal-headed boat. He's on fire. And here is a really good look at the all-seeing eye on Jesus' forehead. And we're going to watch this part in slow motion. You can see Jesus' eyes have fire in them, and there looks to me to be a depiction of Notre Dame in the background. And the thorns disappear, and the spire falls. And there goes Notre Dame. Strikingly familiar imagery. Is this the birth of a new age? Are they creating a new church? Were these relics meant to be destroyed so that we could then worship something else? Jesus now, with the jackal head returned, making his way out into the sun, certainly brings to mind the morning star. I'm sure you guys know what that means. And there we have it. Very strange video. Very strange imagery. I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below. All right, next we have a couple of stories that are not about Notre Dame. Judicial Watch has officially sued the Justice Department after the FBI failed to provide details on contact with Hillary Clinton's campaign lawyer. Judicial Watch is on a roll. Conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit against the DOJ on Tuesday for communications between FBI lawyer James Baker and Michael Sussman. Conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit against the DOJ on Tuesday for communications between former FBI lawyer James Baker and Michael Sussman, a Pkwy law partner and former DOJ attorney. Michael Sussman represented the DNC in Hillary Clinton's campaign, while Pkwy covertly paid for the fake Russia dossier that the FBI and DOJ used to obtain FISA warrants on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page to spy on Trump. The lawsuit was filed after the FBI failed to respond to a FOIA request dated October 5, 2018, where they were seeking any and all records related to communications between FBI General Counsel James Baker and the former DOJ attorney and current Pkwy partner Michael Sussman. The time frame for Judicial Watch's request is between January 1st, 2016 and December 31st, 2016. Hillary Clinton and the DNC funneled money through Pkwy to pay Oppo research firm Fusion GPS for the fake Russia dossier that was compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele. Former FBI lawyer James Baker told Republican lawmakers in 2 October 2018 interviews that he met with Michael Sussman in September of 2016, just weeks before the first FISA warrant on Carter Page was issued. James Baker told lawmakers in October that Michael Sussman gave him documents and a thumb drive related to Russian interference in the election, hacking, and possible Trump connections, all proven to be false at this point. Congressman Mark Meadows grilled James Baker during the October interview and asked him, "Is it normal for the FBI to meet with a presidential candidate's lawyer?" This lawsuit aims to fully expose the scandalous collusion between the Obama FBI and the Clinton DNC political operation to target Hillary Clinton's political opponent, Donald J. Trump, said Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. The corrupted FBI owes Americans total transparency on this scandal. Yes, they do. Of course, you can always support Judicial Watch by going to judicialwatch.org and helping them out. Judicial Watch is really doing the work that is not being done by our own DOJ. All of these things need to be released. And Grassley and Graham have put Bill Barr on notice on that very subject. The DOJ can no longer use Mueller probe as excuse to dodge questions on Hillary's email investigation. Top Senate Republicans are renewing their efforts to get to the bottom of the FBI's mishandling of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private server now that Mueller's investigation has concluded. Mueller's investigation into whether Trump colluded with the Kremlin during the 2016 election also served as a way to block congressional oversight into Obama's and Clinton's corruption. Now that Rosenstein and Mueller can no longer run defense at the Justice Department, Republican Senate chairs of 3 very powerful committees are demanding Bill Barr look into the FBI's sham mid-year investigation. In a letter sent to Attorney General Bill Barr Tuesday, Finance Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham, and Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee Chairman Ron Johnson wrote that the Justice Department can no longer use Mueller's investigation as an excuse to dodge oversight. Now that the special counsel's investigation has concluded, we are unaware of any legitimate basis upon which the department can refuse to answer the Judiciary Committee's inquiries, the GOP senators wrote to Barr. The GOP senators previously requested information on a classified appendix to Inspector General Michael Horowitz's report that was released in June of 2018, titled "A Review of Various Actions by the Federal Bureau of Investigations and Department of Justice in Advance of the 2016 Election." The classified appendix raises significant issues associated with the FBI's failure to review certain highly classified information in support of its mid-year investigation, the senators wrote, referring to the code name the FBI gave to Hillary's email investigation. In particular, the Inspector General noted that it learned that the FBI acquired classified material that may have included information potentially relevant to the mid-year investigation. The FBI even drafted a memorandum in May of 2016 stating that access to the information was necessary to complete the investigation. However, that memorandum was never completed. The Inspector General's report on former FBI Director James Comey was very damning for the Bureau and stated that Comey was insubordinate and affirmatively concealed information that the Justice Department during the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server. However, it concluded that actions taken by the corrupt agents did not change the outcome of the Clinton email probe, probably because they had decided to whitewash it from the very beginning. The FBI agents also who handled the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private server with kid gloves migrated over to Mueller's probe to hunt down President Trump and his associates. The FBI exonerated Hillary Clinton before interviewing 17 witnesses, including Clinton, handed out immunity like candy, and claimed Hillary's intent factored into whether she should be indicted or not. Intent is not part of the statute. Hillary Clinton destroyed evidence under subpoena. Her aides took hammers to multiple BlackBerries and used BleachBit to erase over 30,000 emails, yet she has still not been indicted. You mean like with a cloth, Clinton previously said, mocking a journalist who questioned whether she wiped her private server clean to avoid handing over damning emails to investigators? Former FBI counterintelligence chief Peter Strzok changed the language on Hillary's exoneration letter from grossly negligent to extremely careless, ultimately preventing the former Secretary of State from being charged under the Espionage Act. Government watchdog group Judicial Watch obtained a tranche of Hillary Clinton's emails through a FOIA lawsuit that revealed classified information was found on her private server, including the name of a clandestine clown agent. Here is a screenshot of the letter sent to Attorney General Barr. Well, it's great to see that they are pushing for this stuff to actually be finally taken care of. But at this point, I don't know how much confidence I have in everything. Maybe it's just because I'm sick and I'm feeling down. But, you know, the longer it goes, the more that it seems like Hillary Clinton's going to get away with it. But I am doing everything I can to hold on to my faith and believe that we are going to see justice prevail. Although I know that it's hard to believe that at this point something is going to happen, I have to believe that justice will prevail and we are going to see Hillary Clinton finally prosecuted for the things that she did all these many years ago, it seems like now. But all we can do is sit back and watch. We have to have some level of faith in Attorney General Barr because he is new to his position. He's got a lot that he's working to clean up here in our government. And the same with President Trump. We can't expect to see things flip overnight. Otherwise, the entire government would have essentially collapsed because there was so much corruption just entrenched in every level. I'm just continuing to pray. I'm continuing to ask God to please help us, to allow us to see justice in these matters, because that's the only thing that we can do. I'm not in control here. We're not in control here, no matter how much we'd like to see all these things take place. It's not up to us, and we just have to believe in the system that we have here in America and just hope that everything is taken care of in the manner in which it's supposed to be. All right, you guys. I'm really not feeling well. Thank you for bearing with me. I know I probably sound even more nasally than normal, but I'm having a lot of issues. I think I came down with a cold. So thank you very much for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.